The gunshot echoed through the valley as Hannah Fletcher's hand trembled, her father's rifle still warm against her shoulder. The three men on horseback before her property line hesitated, their intentions as clear as the Montana sky above them in the summer of 1879. She had inherited this land 6 months ago when consumption took her father, and the vultures had been circling ever since. "Next one won't be aimed at the dirt," Hannah called out, her voice steadier than she felt. At 22, with nothing but 50 acres, a small cabin, and her father's lessons on survival, she stood alone against men who saw a woman's claim as easy pickings. The lead rider, a man with a face like tanned leather beneath his expensive hat, sneered. "You can't hold this land alone, girl. Better sell to Blackwater Mining now, before things get unpleasant." "This land isn't for sale at any price, Mr. Yates," Hannah replied, using the stalk to push a strand of auburn hair from her face. "Now kindly remove yourselves from my property." The three men exchanged glances before turning their horses. "We'll be back," Yates called over his shoulder. "And next time, we won't be asking so politely." Hannah waited until they disappeared over the rise before letting out the breath she'd been holding. Her father had warned her about Quincy Yates and Blackwater Mining's interest in their land. There were whispers of gold in these hills, though her father had never found more than enough to keep them fed during lean winters. She returned to her cabin, securing the rifle above the door before attending to her daily chores. The small garden needed weeding, and the lone milk cow was due for milking. As she worked, Hannah fought back tears. She had no allies in town. Most folks kept their distance from the odd widow Fletcher and his headstrong daughter, who wore trousers and could shoot straighter than most men. The sun was setting when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Hannah rushed inside for her rifle, but halted when she saw it was only one rider, slumped in his saddle. The stranger's horse trudged to her water trough and stopped, allowing Hannah to see the dark stain spreading across the man's side. "Mister," she called cautiously, rifle ready, "you're bleeding on my property." The man raised his head, revealing a face Hannah might have found handsome if it weren't creased with pain. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and several days' worth of stubble covered his jaw. "Apologies, madam," he managed, voice strained. "Didn't mean to trespass. Seems I've had a disagreement with some local hospitality." He attempted to dismount but swayed dangerously. Hannah set her rifle aside and rushed forward, catching him as he slid from the saddle. He was heavy against her, smelling of dust, sweat, and blood. "I'm Riley," he murmured as she helped him toward the cabin. "Riley Quinn. I'd tip my hat if I could remember where I left it." "Hannah Fletcher," she replied, kicking open her door. "And I don't recall inviting company, Mr. Quinn." Despite her words, Hannah helped him to her father's bed. The bullet had torn through his side, missing vital organs but leaving a nasty wound that had bled freely. As she cut away his shirt, Riley Quinn studied her with eyes the color of a summer storm. "Most ladies would have left me for the buzzards," he commented. Hannah snorted, pressing a clean cloth to his wound. "I'm no lady, according to town gossip. Now hush while I fix this mess." Working methodically, Hannah cleaned and stitched the wound as her father had taught her, using whiskey both as disinfectant and to dull Riley's pain. When she finished, his breathing had steadied, though fever flushed his cheeks. "Those men who were looking for you," Hannah asked as she wiped blood from her hands, "would they be Blackwater Mining men?" Riley's eyes sharpened despite his weakened state. "You know them. They paid me a visit today. Seem to think a woman alone should be grateful for any offer on her land." "They're wrong," Riley muttered, his eyes drifting closed. "About more than just that." Hannah watched as he succumbed to exhaustion, wondering what trouble she'd just invited into her home. Yet something about Riley Quinn's straight talk resonated with her. Besides, she thought, a wounded man might be her best defense against Yates's return. Morning light streamed through the cabin windows when Hannah heard Riley stirring. She had spent the night in her father's rocking chair, waking every few hours to check his fever and change the compress on his forehead. "You're still here," he observed, voice rough with sleep. "It's my home," Hannah replied dryly. "Where else would I be?" A hint of a smile touched Riley's lips. "Meant I'm surprised you didn't change your mind about helping a stranger who might bring trouble." Hannah poured him a cup of water from the pitcher beside the bed. "Trouble found me long before you did, Mr. Quinn. Now, care to tell me why Blackwater mining men put a bullet in you?" Riley accepted the water, drinking deeply before answering. "I've been tracking Yates and his operation for months. They've been acquiring land all through this territory, sometimes legally, often not." He paused, studying her. "Your land. It's important to them?" Hannah nodded. "My father always believed there was gold here, though he never found more than dust. Yates offered to buy us out 3 times before Pa died. And now they're pressuring you," Riley concluded. "Did Yates mention the railroad coming through?" Hannah shook her head, confusion furrowing her brow. "The Northern Pacific is plotting a new route. Word hasn't spread yet, but those with connections know. Land along the proposed line will be worth 10 times what it is now." Riley's expression darkened. "Yates has been buying up properties along the route, using whatever methods necessary." "You seem well informed for a drifter," Hannah observed suspiciously. Riley's smile was grim. "I was a U.S. Marshal until recently. Still am, technically, though my superiors might disagree with my methods of investigation." "A lawman," Hannah said, skepticism evident, "without a badge or papers to prove it." "Left in a hurry when I realized Yates had friends in the territorial office," Riley explained. "Seems corruption runs deeper than I first thought." Hannah stood, pacing the small cabin. "Even if I believe you, what does this matter to me? I'm not selling my land, railroad or no railroad." Riley struggled to sit up. "Yates doesn't take rejection well, Miss Fletcher. 3 other landowners refused his offers. One died in a mysterious fire, another was found trampled by his own horses, and the third simply disappeared." Cold fear settled in Hannah's stomach. "Are you suggesting I should just give up my home? My father's legacy?" "No," Riley replied firmly. "I'm suggesting we work together. I need evidence to bring Yates down properly, and you need protection until I can get it." Hannah crossed her arms. "And I should trust you because—" Riley met her gaze steadily. "Because I took a bullet trying to help the last farmer who stood against Yates, and because right now, I'm the only ally you've got." Before Hannah could respond, the sound of approaching horses broke the tense silence. She peered through the window and counted 5 riders coming fast toward the cabin. "It's Yates," she hissed, "and he's brought more men." Riley swung his legs over the edge of the bed, grimacing in pain. "Give me my gun." Hannah retrieved his revolver from where she'd placed it on the mantel, along with her father's rifle. "You're in no condition to fight." "Maybe not," Riley agreed, checking his weapon. "But they don't know that. Help me to the window, then get out of sight." Hannah did as he asked, supporting his weight as he positioned himself by the window. His body was warm against hers, solid despite his injury. "If shooting starts," he murmured, "head out the back and make for the woods. Don't wait for me." "This is my home," Hannah replied stubbornly. "I'm not running." The riders pulled up outside, Yates in front with 4 armed men behind him. "Miss Fletcher," Yates called. "I've brought the papers. Ready to make a sensible decision today?" Hannah moved to the door but stayed inside. "My answer hasn't changed, Mr. Yates. This land isn't for sale." Yates's face hardened. "I've been patient, girl, but my patience has limits. We know you're harboring a fugitive. Hand him over, and perhaps we can still come to an arrangement." Hannah felt Riley tense beside her. "There's no one here but me, Mr. Yates. And this is still my property that you're trespassing on." One of Yates's men dismounted and started toward the cabin. "Let's just burn her out, boss. Save us all some time." Hold it right there, Riley called, his voice carrying the authority of his former position. He stepped into view in the doorway, keeping his injured side hidden and his gun steady. This lady asked you to leave her property. The approaching man halted, hand hovering near his holster. Yates squinted at Riley, recognition dawning. Well, if it isn't the meddling lawman, Yates sneered. Thought my boys took care of you. Takes more than poor marksmanship to stop me, Riley replied evenly. Now, as the lady said, you're trespassing. Tension crackled in the air as neither side moved. Hannah stood beside Riley, her rifle ready. 5 against 2, Marshal, Yates observed, and one of you barely standing. Those aren't odds I'd bet on. Maybe, a new voice called from the tree line, but 7 against 5 looks better. Hannah turned to see 2 men on horseback emerging from the trees, rifles aimed at Yates's group. Behind them, several more figures appeared, all armed. Jacobson? Yates snarled at one of the newcomers. What the hell are you doing? The farmer Hannah recognized from town squared his shoulders. Standing with my neighbors, Yates. You threatened to ruin me if I didn't sell, but seems I'm not the only one you've been squeezing. More settlers appeared, men and women Hannah had seen in town but barely spoken to. They formed a line behind Jacobson, weapons ready. Yates's confident demeanor faltered. This isn't your fight, he warned the gathered farmers. It became our fight when you started burning homes and threatening families, Jacobson replied. Miss Fletcher might keep to herself, but she's one of us, and we take care of our own. Hannah felt a lump in her throat. She had always believed herself alone since her father's death, yet here were her neighbors, standing with her. Yates glanced around, calculating his odds. This isn't over, he finally spat, turning his horse, not by a long shot. His men followed reluctantly, casting dark looks at the assembled farmers. As the dust from their departure settled, Hannah turned to Riley, who was leaning heavily against the doorframe. You're bleeding again, she observed, seeing fresh red staining his bandages. Worth it, Riley replied, offering her a weary smile before addressing the gathered neighbors. Thank you, folks. That was mighty fine timing. Jacobson dismounted, approaching the cabin. Word spread about Yates's men bothering Miss Fletcher. Figured it was time we stopped letting him pick us off one by one. He turned to Hannah. Sorry we haven't been more neighborly before now, miss. Your pa kept to himself, and we respected that maybe too much. I appreciate you coming, Hannah said sincerely. All of you. As the neighbors dispersed with promises to keep watch and return if needed, Hannah helped Riley back to bed. His wound had reopened slightly, requiring fresh bandages. You've made some friends today, Riley commented as she worked. It seems I had them all along, Hannah replied thoughtfully. I just didn't know it. Riley caught her hand as she finished securing the bandage. Yates won't give up easily. What happened today will only make him more determined. Then we'll be more determined, Hannah stated firmly, aware she hadn't pulled her hand from his grip. You mentioned needing evidence against him? Riley nodded. Documents proving his methods and connections. I believe they're in his office in town. Then we'll get them, Hannah decided. Once you're stronger. Riley's eyebrows rose. We? You need help, Marshal Quinn, Hannah said, with a hint of a smile. And it seems I'm the only ally you've got. The next few days established a rhythm between them. Riley regained strength slowly, while Hannah tended her farm and kept watch. Neighbors stopped by regularly, bringing food and news from town. The community Hannah had never truly felt part of was rallying around her. On the 4th evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Riley finally asked the question that had been on his mind. Why stay here, Hannah? Even without Yates's threats, this is hard country for anyone to work alone. Hannah was quiet for a moment. My mother died when I was 8. After that, it was just Pa and me. He taught me everything: how to shoot, farm, even basic carpentry. Her voice softened with memory. This land was his dream. He believed in it when no one else did. And now it's your dream? Riley asked gently. I don't know, Hannah admitted. I just know I won't let men like Yates take it by force or intimidation. That would dishonor everything Pa stood for. Riley's hand found hers in the gathering dusk. Your father would be proud of the woman you've become. Hannah turned to him, suddenly aware of how close they sat, how his eyes reflected the last golden rays of sunlight. And what kind of woman is that, Marshall Quinn? The kind who stands her ground, Riley replied, his voice dropping lower. The kind who helps a stranger when most would turn away. The kind a man could admire greatly. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken feelings. Then a distant sound broke the spell, hoofbeats approaching fast. They both tensed, reaching for weapons, but relaxed when they recognized Jacobson's son riding hard toward the cabin. Miss Fletcher! The young man called, reining in his horse. Marshall, there's trouble in town. Yates has been drinking at the saloon, making threats. Says he's bringing men tomorrow to run you off for good. Riley stood, his side still tender but healing well. Time's up. We need to move now. Move where? Hannah asked. To get those documents from Yates's office, Riley replied grimly. Tonight, while he's occupied at the saloon. Hannah didn't hesitate. I'll saddle the horses. Darkness had fully settled when they reached town. They left their horses with Jacobson, who had insisted on helping. The mining company's office sat at the end of the main street, dark and seemingly unguarded. Too easy, Riley murmured as they approached from the alley behind. Yates isn't careless. Maybe he's confident no one would dare break in, Hannah suggested, her heart pounding with nervous energy. Riley tested the back door and found it locked. Stand watch, he whispered, pulling out small metal tools from his pocket. Hannah positioned herself at the corner of the building, scanning the street while Riley worked the lock. The distant piano music and laughter from the saloon provided cover for the soft clicks of his lockpicking. Got it, he finally announced, pushing the door open. The office was sparse but well organized, with a large desk dominating the room and file cabinets along one wall. Riley moved to the desk while Hannah checked the cabinets. These are all mining claims, she whispered, rifling through folders. Nothing suspicious. Riley was examining the desk when his fingers found a hidden catch beneath the main drawer. A small compartment opened, revealing a stack of papers and a leather-bound book. This is it, he said, quickly scanning the documents. Correspondence with railroad officials, payments to territorial officers, even orders regarding landowners who refused to sell. His expression darkened. Including direct instructions about your father. Hannah stiffened. What about my father? Before Riley could answer, the front door rattled. They froze as voices approached Yates and at least two others. Hide, Riley hissed, shoving the papers into his coat and pulling Hannah toward a storage closet. They squeezed inside just as the office door opened, finding themselves pressed together in the tight space. Hannah could feel Riley's heartbeat against her back, his breath warm on her neck as they remained motionless. Don't care what it takes, Yates was saying as he entered. I want that Fletcher girl's land cleared by tomorrow night. Burn the cabin if you have to. What about the marshal? Another voice asked. Kill him, Yates replied coldly. He's officially interfered with my business for the last time. Through a crack in the door, Hannah could see Yates pour himself a drink from a decanter on a side table. The railroad representatives will be here in 3 days. By then, I need to show clear title to every parcel along the proposed route. And the girl? The other man asked. Yates's smile was chilling. Make it look like an accident, something tragic that the town will talk about, then forget. Hannah felt Riley's arm tighten around her waist, keeping her still despite the rage that coursed through her veins. After what seemed an eternity, Yates finished giving instructions and the men left. Riley and Hannah waited several minutes longer before emerging from the closet. "We have to warn the others," Hannah whispered urgently. Riley nodded, patting his coat where he'd stashed the documents. "And we need to get these to the federal marshal's office in Helena. It's our only chance to stop this legally." They slipped out the back door and hurried to where Jacobson waited with their horses. After explaining what they'd overheard, they formulated a plan. Jacobson would warn the neighboring farms to prepare for trouble, while Riley and Hannah would ride through the night to reach the nearest telegraph office at daybreak. The night was cool as they rode side by side, pushing their horses as fast as was safe in the darkness. Hannah felt strangely alive despite the danger, or perhaps because of it. For the first time since her father's death, she had purpose beyond mere survival. "You never told me," she said as they paused to rest the horses by a small creek. "What the papers said about my father?" Riley's expression was grim in the moonlight. "Yates ordered men to contaminate your father's well with arsenic. Small amounts over time, to make it look like natural illness." Hannah's legs nearly gave way beneath her. "Consumption. That's what the doctor said." "I'm sorry, Hannah," Riley said softly, moving to support her. "Your father was murdered because he wouldn't sell." Tears streamed down Hannah's face as fury and grief competed within her. "He suffered for months. I nursed him while he wasted away." Her hands balled into fists. "Yates will pay for this." "He will," Riley promised, pulling her gently against his chest. "Legally and properly. Your father deserves justice, not revenge that might get you killed." Hannah allowed herself a moment of weakness in Riley's arms before straightening. "You're right. Let's get those papers to Helena." They continued riding as the moon traversed the sky, speaking little but drawing comfort from each other's presence. As dawn painted the eastern horizon, they crested a hill and saw the small settlement with its telegraph office in the distance. "Almost there," Riley said encouragingly. The crack of a rifle shot shattered the morning stillness. Riley's horse reared as dirt exploded near its hooves. "Ride!" Riley shouted, drawing his revolver as more shots rang out. Hannah spurred her horse forward, but looked back to see 3 riders emerging from a stand of trees behind them. Riley was returning fire, his horse dancing beneath him. Another shot, and Riley jerked in the saddle. Hannah turned her horse immediately, raising her rifle. "Go!" Riley called to her, blood staining his shoulder. "Get the papers through." "Not without you," Hannah replied, taking aim and firing at their pursuers. One man tumbled from his saddle. Riley managed to control his horse and they rode hard for the settlement, bullets whizzing past them. The telegraph office was just ahead when Riley's horse stumbled, throwing him forward. He hit the ground hard, rolling to avoid being trampled. Hannah dismounted in an instant, running to his side as their pursuers closed in. "Get up," she urged, helping him to his feet. Riley leaned heavily against her, fresh blood soaking his shirt. "The papers," he gasped, pressing them into her hands. "Go, I'll hold them off." "They tried to take her land by force," the cowboy said. "Not while I'm breathing," Hannah said, determination hardening her voice. "Those were your words, Riley Quinn. Now get on my horse. We're finishing this together." Something in her tone brooked no argument. Riley managed to mount her horse with her help, and she swung up behind him, taking the reins. "Hold on," she whispered, kicking the horse into a gallop toward the settlement. They burst into the telegraph office minutes later, startling the operator from his morning coffee. "Federal Marshal," Riley gasped, producing his badge from inside his coat. "I need to send an urgent wire to Helena." While Riley dictated the message, Hannah watched the street through the window. Their pursuers had slowed at the edge of town, apparently unwilling to continue their attack in front of witnesses. The telegraph operator's eyes widened as he transmitted Riley's message detailing Yates's crimes and requesting immediate assistance. "Response from Helena," the operator announced after several tense minutes. "Federal marshals already en route based on previous reports. ETA tomorrow morning." Hold position. Riley sagged with relief, his injured shoulder finally demanding attention. We need a doctor, Hannah told the operator, who directed them to a small building across the street. As the local doctor treated Riley's wound, a clean shot through the muscle that had fortunately missed bone, Hannah kept watch at the window. They're still out there, she observed, waiting. They won't attack in town, Riley said, wincing as the doctor stitched his wound. But they'll try to prevent us from returning to warn your neighbors. Then we need to get back without being seen, Hannah replied, already forming a plan. By mid-afternoon, they had borrowed fresh horses and supplies from sympathetic townsfolk. The doctor had insisted Riley rest, but he refused to stay behind. Your neighbors are in danger, he said stubbornly. I won't abandon them. They left town by a back trail, guided by a local hunter who knew the wilderness paths that would keep them hidden. The journey took longer than the main road would have, but by nightfall, they approached Hannah's land without encountering Yates's men. Smoke rose from several nearby farms, but Hannah's cabin remained untouched, surrounded by armed neighbors standing guard. Jacobson greeted them with relief. Word spread fast after I raised the alarm, he explained. Yates's men tried to start trouble at the Peterson place, but found 20 armed farmers waiting. They retreated, but they'll be back with more men. Riley shared the news about the federal marshals arriving the next day. We just need to hold out until then. That night, the community gathered in Hannah's cabin to prepare. Women loaded spare guns and made bandages while men established watch positions. Hannah moved among them, coordinating supplies and positions with natural leadership that surprised even herself. Riley watched her with undisguised admiration. You've become the heart of this community, he observed when she finally took a break beside him. Hannah shook her head. I never thought I belonged here. After Pa died, I felt so alone. Sometimes it takes a fight to show you who your real family is, Riley replied. These people respect you, Hannah. They're risking everything to stand with you. Hannah met his gaze. And you? What are you risking, Marshal Quinn? Riley's hand found hers. Nothing I wasn't willing to lose the moment I saw you standing on your porch with that rifle. His voice softened. Everything changed for me that day. Before Hannah could respond, a shout came from outside. Riders coming! At least 20 men. Everyone moved to their positions. Riley, despite his injury, took station by the front window with Hannah. Torches illuminated Yates and his men as they approached. They halted just beyond rifle range. This is your last chance, Yates called out. Clear off this land now or we burn you out. Hannah stepped onto the porch, Riley beside her. This land belongs to the people who work at Yates, she called back. The federal marshals know about your schemes. They'll be here by morning. Yates's face contorted with rage. You'll be dead by morning. He raised his arm to signal his men forward. The crack of a rifle shot cut through the night, and Yates's hat flew from his head. From the tree line behind Yates's men, more rifles fired. Caught in a crossfire, the attackers scattered in confusion. It's the Jacobson boys, someone shouted from inside the cabin. They've circled around behind. The night erupted into chaos as Yates's men tried to regroup, caught between defenders at the cabin and the flanking force from the trees. Shots rang out, but most were aimed to drive the attackers back rather than kill. Riley pulled Hannah down as bullets splintered the porch railing. Stay low, he urged, returning fire carefully. The fighting lasted less than 20 minutes before Yates's men retreated, carrying several wounded. As dawn approached, the defenders remained vigilant, but no further attack came. With the first light, riders appeared on the eastern road, not Yates's men, but a dozen federal marshals led by a grim-faced captain. They rode directly to the cabin, where Riley met them, official papers in hand. Marshal Quinn, the captain greeted him. Quite a situation you've uncovered here. These people deserve the credit, Riley replied, gesturing to Hannah and the gathered farmers. They stood against corruption when the law couldn't protect them. The federal marshals rode into town to arrest Yates, finding him attempting to flee with as much money as he could carry. His operation collapsed quickly as agents seized his records, and associates turned on each other for leniency. A week later, Hannah stood on her porch watching the sunset. The excitement had finally died down, and neighbors had returned to their farms. The railroad company had sent representatives to negotiate fair prices with landowners who wished to sell and to respect the wishes of those who didn't. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Riley approaching. His arm was still in a sling, but he moved with more ease. "The captain offered me my badge back," he said without preamble. "Full reinstatement and commendation." Hannah's heart sank, though she forced a smile. "That's wonderful news. You deserve it." Riley stepped closer. I turned him down. "What? Why would you do that?" Hannah asked, stunned. "Because the job would take me away from here," Riley replied simply. "Away from you." Hannah's breath caught. "Riley, I've been a lawman most of my adult life," he continued, taking her hand. "Always moving, always alone. But these past weeks with you, Hannah Fletcher, have shown me something I never thought I'd find." "And what's that?" she whispered, hardly daring to hope. "Home," Riley answered, his free hand gently touching her cheek. "Not just a place, but a person. Someone worth staying for." Tears filled Hannah's eyes as Riley continued. "I don't know much about farming," he admitted with a soft laugh, "but I'm willing to learn, if you'll have me." Hannah's answer was to close the distance between them, her lips finding his in a kiss that held all the promise of the future stretching before them. When they finally parted, she rested her forehead against his. "My father would have liked you," she murmured. "A man who stands his ground for what's right." "And a woman brave enough to fight for her legacy," Riley added, wrapping his arm around her waist. "We make quite a pair, Miss Fletcher." As the last light faded from the western sky, they stood together on the porch of what was now their home, surrounded by land that had been defended not just by force of arms, but by the strength of community and the power of love. 6 months later, Hannah stood in the doorway of the expanded cabin, watching Riley lead their new horses into the corral they'd built together. The railroad had indeed come through nearby, bringing prosperity to the area without taking their land. The settlement had grown into a proper town, with Hannah and Riley becoming respected fixtures in the community. "Mrs. Quinn," Riley called, spotting her in the doorway. "Come see these beauties Jacobson traded us." Hannah smiled at the name she was still getting used to, her hand absently touching the simple gold band on her finger. They had married in a ceremony attended by the entire community, beginning a new chapter that neither had imagined possible when a wounded lawman first stumbled onto her property. As she walked toward her husband, Hannah reflected on how much had changed. The land that had once been her burden was now their shared passion. The neighbors who had once been strangers were now family, and the lonely future she had resigned herself to had transformed into something rich, with possibility and love. Riley pulled her close as she reached him, his kiss as warm and promising as the first they'd shared. "Happy?" he asked, studying her face. Hannah nodded, looking out over the land that had almost been taken from her by force, the land that a determined cowboy had helped her defend with his last breath if necessary. The land that was now truly their home. "More than I ever thought possible," she answered truthfully. "This is what Pa always wanted for me, even if he didn't know it." Together they walked toward the horizon of their shared future, on land defended and love hard-won, the greatest treasures either could have hoped to find in the wild Montana territory.